What is up, youth? Listen, today is week 1 of Young Living. I've been looking forward to this series for over a month now. I think it's going to be amazing, and I think the principles that are taught over the next 5 weeks will change your life if you allow it. So I pray that you would open up your mind, your heart, and really receive these words from the next few weeks. We're going to have different instructors. It's just going to be really, really cool. And so definitely tune in. And I want to read our theme verse for this series. It's 1 Timothy 4:12, and it says, "Don't let anyone think less of you because you are young. Be an example to all believers in what you say, in the way you live, in your love, in your faith, and your purity." And so today, we're going to be hitting the first part of that, being an example in what you say. You know, I'll never forget my first day at college. My first day at Capital University. I was at a different college prior to that, but I was coming down the hall and I passed my guitar instructor, and I'm like, "Hey man, how's it going?" And he looks at me and he says, "Where were you last night?" And I'm like, "What do you mean?" And he was like, "You missed studio class." And I was like, "I didn't know I missed studio class." And he's like, "Well, it was posted on my door." I'm like, "Well, I didn't see it." And I'll filter out a few choice words that he said to me. But in short, he goes, "There's no place for airheads at this university, so you better get it together or get out." And I was like, dude, you know, stomach sinks kind of feeling. And I was like, oh man, like I just totally, first day in classes, and I just hit like it off in the very wrong way with this guy. Like he is ticked right now, okay? And I remember walking away and I was telling myself like, "Man, Jared, you're an idiot. You know, like why did you do that? Why didn't you not pay attention? You know, like why didn't you check, you know, the schedule on the door, you know, like yada, yada, yada," and just began to tear myself down because of it. However, I decided to shift the outcome of that, and I decided to prove him wrong, work my tail end off, and I ended up being a student that he was very thankful to have. In fact, he sent me back trying to get me additional scholarships and stuff just because I worked my tail end off at that school. However, the words that he said could have completely torn my life apart. I could have dropped out of school. I could have done all kinds of stuff. It would have been my decision. But however, I mean, words have a lot of power to them. And so I want to draw your attention to Proverbs 18:21. It says, "The tongue can bring death or life. Those who love to talk will reap the consequences." And so we're going to talk about 2 things today. 1, words that bring death. 2, words that bring life. When you were a kid, you probably heard the super popular saying, "Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me," right? And so you know, we would love to think that's actually true, but in all reality, it's probably, no, not probably, I mean, it's far from true. Words hurt. They can really hurt. They can be very painful, and if you take just a moment and think back, it probably wouldn't be too hard to remember sayings like, "You're fat, you're ugly, you're stupid," you know, and those feelings that come back over you when you hear those things, and how difficult it can be to overcome those feelings. And the flip side to that is when somebody compliments you, or when someone says something good, it's probably not very difficult for you to think back to that either. Maybe it's been years since you felt like someone's complimented you, or maybe it was a week ago, but you can just remember those moments, and they meant a lot to you. They made you feel good. Words have the ability to create the atmosphere for our lives, and they also have the ability to create an atmosphere for other people's lives. And they're really, really powerful. The way you choose to communicate will ultimately affect every area of your life. The way you choose to communicate, you have that choice, and it will affect every area of your life. Let's give a few examples of what this could be like. You're in a relationship and you're constantly tearing down, you're depressing, you know, more than likely that person is not going to want to be around you. Therefore, your friendship kind of disintegrates into nothing. Maybe you're at work and you're having a really bad day, and you have a customer that comes up to you and needs help, and you aren't necessarily saying bad things to them, but you're being very negative and down. You're not really smiling. You're not really helping them in what you're saying. They could go complain. The outcome is not going to be very good for you. Let's take it a step further. Your boss asks you to do something, and you treat your boss like you just treated that customer. Well, you're probably going to be fired. And so the deal is the way you say things, the way you communicate really matters in every aspect of your life. It matters in your relationship with Christ. It matters with your family, your friends, your teachers, and your coworkers, as well as your boss. And so it really does play an effect in what we say. Ephesians 4:29 says, don't use foul or abusive language. Let everything you say be good or helpful, so that your words will be an encouragement to those who hear them. You know, in Christian culture, it's kind of like a talked about thing. We talk about swearing, all right? Don't swear. We have these few things that we deem as sins that we kind of elevate high, you know, drinking, smoking, swearing. And this is our culture. This is basically what we deem as bad sins. But in all reality, there's actually way more than just those focal points. And so let me just put it in a little bit of perspective. You know, in the Bible, in Ephesians 4:29, it's saying don't use foul or abusive language. So is swearing foul or abusive language? That shouldn't be very hard for you to discover. Yes, it is. I mean, we live in a very, very ungodly society. Most of the time, they don't want to have to do anything with religion of any kind, especially Christianity. And, I mean, they still beep out swear words on TV. You know, they still beep out swear words on, you know, child television. You're still not allowed to swear at your job. Like, let's just say a few of you work at Chick-fil-A. So, let's say a customer comes up to you and, you know, you get frustrated because the computer's not working. Beep, you know. You're probably going to get fired, okay? It's just not, it's not accepted in our culture. It's used as foul, ugly, abusive language. And so, you know, as Christians, you know, in Colossians, we're told that we should represent Jesus in everything that we do. And so we choose to not say foul or abusive language. However, we, for some reason, post these swear words up as like that's our line. We can't cross over that line as a believer, or we shouldn't, because it doesn't represent Christ, which you're right, it doesn't. However, the Bible doesn't actually pinpoint the word swear words. It says that you shouldn't use foul or abusive language, and then it follows up in the same verse by saying, let everything you say be good. Everything be good. What does that mean? That means negativity is just as wrong as swear words. So does that mean that, well, if negativity is just as wrong as swears and I'm negative all the time, I might as well just cuss like a sailor? No. That means that you should focus on everything and say nothing but good. Now, I understand that that is very difficult. You stub your toe, it's definitely difficult. However, you pray that through the Holy Spirit that you can overcome this and you can constantly think good, but you're going to have to alter your mindset. Think about this. When was the last time somebody did something to you that was ugly, wrong, against you? How did you respond? When was the last time you were disappointed? What were the words that you said? Maybe they weren't, you know, what we would call a curse word, but maybe they were something that was very far from uplifting. Maybe it was to a friend and you degraded them or you brought them down. Or maybe it was about yourself. You're stupid, Jared, yada, yada, yada. Okay? We need to learn that everything we say is good. Everything that we say be good. The Word of God instructs us to do this. You know, words are never neutral. They're never neutral. Every word that goes out of your mouth has a consequence attached to it. How you speak to your friends, your family members, your coworkers truly is going to determine the quality of your relationships. It's going to determine the quality of your relationships. The people in your life already know their problems. Okay, if we just stop and think, we all know the things we struggle with. We all know the things that we need to improve on, our weaknesses, essentially, right? We know this, yet, you know, sometimes we feel like it's our job to tell this person or that person, like, hey, dude, you are kind of awful at that. You should get better at that. But in all reality, if we become a source of encouragement rather than a fault finder or a self-proclaimed problem fixer, you're going to cooperate with God and build up your peer and build up yourself. Think positive. We need to get negativity out of our vocabulary and think positive. Ephesians 4:32 says, "Instead, be kind to each other, tenderhearted, forgiving one another, just as God through Christ has forgiven you." We're supposed to encourage each other. We're supposed to lift each other up. We're supposed to have a tender heart. We're supposed to forgive one another. I mean, think about it. When's the last time one of your friends just downright did something against you, or a coworker or somebody, and you were just ticked to high heavens, venting to another friend, okay, and then it's essentially gossips out and becomes a mess, rather than the biblical response to that is to forgive the person, put a period on that situation, end it. Say, listen, I forgive you. I love you. I care for you. I don't agree with what you did, but I forgive you. What would happen if that is how we choose to respond? You know, sometimes we're actually our worst critics. You know, we've talked a little bit now about what it's like, you know, dealing with other people and how to care for other people and what to say towards other people, you know. But there's some of you that probably don't really struggle much with your communication to other people. You actually tear yourself down. You're telling yourself that you're not good enough. You're telling yourself that, you know, you can't do this or you can't do that. Maybe some of these sentences are a little familiar for you. I'm so uncomfortable in social gatherings. I always say the wrong thing when I talk to him or her. Relationships are just really hard for me. I don't get along with people, so I just choose to avoid them. Have any of those thoughts ever come to your mind? You know, these are self-proclaimed prophecies. Okay, they're self-fulfilling prophecies. They are going to come to life. The words that we say will come to life. Have you ever said something like, I feel stupid when I talk, I always say the wrong thing? Well, guess what? More often than not, when you're in a situation, you're going to remember that you're always uncomfortable talking. You feel stupid, you say the wrong thing every time. And what's going to happen is you're going to say the wrong thing because your judgment is clouded. You've been focusing on the fact that you can't do something. Henry Ford says this statement, whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. And the deal is what we focus on plays a huge role in our outcome. So let's say we flip that, okay? We flip that now, we're focusing on good things. We're telling ourselves, listen, I love being around people. I love the opportunity to communicate, to have relationships, to have friends, you know, and to build each other up. Then often than not, the consequence, your subconsciousness is going to follow the new instructions, okay, just like it did the old one. So just like it always turned out bad, now it's going to turn out good because you're thinking positive. You know, Pastor Mark at Infinite Church, he says, whatever you focus on expands. And it's the truth. When you focus in on something, you accomplish it. Okay, it has a good outcome. And so what would happen if we focused on good things, if we focused on positive language versus negative language? Listen, if you're someone who struggles with depression, feeling like you don't belong, feeling like you're never good enough, feeling like you're not pretty enough, if you struggle with these things, then I encourage you to completely strip negative language out of your vocabulary. Cut it out of your vocabulary. Tell yourself, you know what, I'm not going to say these things. I'm going to think positive. I'm going to, if you need to write it on a post-it note, or if you need to write it on a mirror, or if you need to, you know, make a little screenshot and make it the background on your phone, be positive. Think encouraging. Because the deal is, it's going to affect you. You know, Psalms 139, 13 through 14 says, you made all the delicate inner parts of my body and knit me together in my mother's womb. Thank you for making me so wonderfully complex. Your workmanship is marvelous. How well I know it. Okay? We were made in his image. If you want to have thriving friendships, a family, career, then you need to realize that you are a masterpiece and that the person next to you is a masterpiece as well, painted by the same painter, yet completely different, yet made to change this world. You are incredible. You do have the ability to do incredible things for the kingdom of God and to change this world. But you have to start realizing who you are. You have to think positive. You have to say words of affirmation rather than words that completely degrade and bring people down or even yourself down. Words can bring death, but words can also bring life, and that's what we want to focus on. 1 Thessalonians 5:11 says, so encourage each other and build each other up, just as you already are doing. If you want to walk in the ways of God, then lift up the person next to you. Help them, encourage them, lift yourself up in spirit. Okay? This is what we are supposed to be doing. Some of you need to stop being this self-motivated person and be others-motivated. Hebrews 10:24-25 says, let us think of ways to motivate one another to acts of love and good works. And let us not neglect our meeting together as some people do, but encourage one another, especially now that the day of his return is drawing near. Listen, your relationship with Jesus is a one-on-one thing. But the foundation of that, you're standing on his church. You're standing on people. We were meant to support each other so we can have a one-on-one relationship that's thriving in this sick world. And so it's really, really important that we are there for each other. You know, going back to this verse in Hebrews, it says, don't neglect our meeting together. The word neglect, you know what that means? It means not showing proper attention to. And so when you hear myself or the other student leaders saying, listen, get to youth night, get to church on Sunday, it's really, really important. It's because if you don't, you start to neglect meeting together. Well, Jared, I'm telling you what, one sermon and going through the podcasts during the week, I can show up to church once a month, hit the podcast, I'm good, man. I'm totally good. I get my Bible reading in, all of that. That's awesome. But keep in mind that your relationship that is one-on-one has a foundation of the church underneath you to build you up. And maybe you're doing all right by just showing up to church once a month, which I don't think is the case. But let's just say you are. The person next to you needs you. And that's why you can come every week. The fact is, when I'm down and I'm discouraged, then I have a brother or a sister that can pray for me and lift me up. And when I'm on top of the world, I can pray for my brother or sister that's weak within that time. And we lift each other up. We literally do life together. And so, if you would practice speaking these words of encouragement, speak it to your friends, speak it to your family, speak it to your parents, your teachers, your co-workers, your boss. If you would do that instead of focusing on everything that they do that's wrong and nitpicking their faults, what if you started treating them as if they were already all they could be? What if you focused on, 100%, this person being at 100%, even if they're at 70%? You can be the very difference that makes somebody thrive because you literally lifted them up in your words of encouragement. What if your words grew out of one's full potential instead of their current reality? What if your words grew out of someone's full potential instead of your current reality? I wonder what kind of world we would live in. I wonder what the church would be like if we were constantly lifting each other up, talking good, right? Not negative things, but talking positive and being encouraging. The quality of your life is determined by the quality of your words. Will you say words that bring death, or will you say words that bring life? Think about that.